We are on Yud Amud Bet, 10b3, last line if you're following in the art scroll. Okay. Amar Rabbi Elazar. Rabbi Elazar taught, Ir sheruba rotzchim. Let's say you have a city that most of the people in the city are rotzchim, are murderers. Ena koletet. There's no opportunity for that city to be able to absorb the killers. Now, just to be clear, we'll back up 1 second. The basic rule is that if a person is murdered inadvertently by mistake, right, bishogeg, so it's not like killing on purpose, which carries a death penalty. When you kill by accident, bishogeg, so the person, the relative of the person that was killed with your negligence has the right to be able to kill you, unless you make it to home base, which is one of the designated safe cities that an accidental murderer can run. We've already described that there are 6 set aside, 3 in Israel, 3 outside of Israel, okay? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like a 6-pack, equidistant in Israel and alongside Israel and Transjordan. And besides for those 6, another 42 cities of the Leviim sprinkled all around Israel. So altogether, 48 places that the person can run. Says Rabbi Elazar.
Not just to the 6 designated cities?
Correct. And we differentiated
42.
That the 42 cities vis-a-vis the 6 cities are different because the 6 cities are only able to absolve you or keep you safe if you know that that's lidat, with knowledge. In other words, you need to know that that's what it is. An example would be, what if someone had no idea that this was the city limits? He just walked across, it wasn't clear, he just walked in. He did not know he was safe. The halakha is that the other guy is still able to kill him in the 42 cities. In the 6 cities, as they were designated as safe zones, it's with or without your knowledge, okay? Interestingly enough, there's other examples of that too. What happens if a guy goes to sleep in the back seat of his limousine and the driver's now driving him? He now drives into one of the 42 cities. He's sleeping. So he has no awareness of the fact that he's in a safe zone. The guy can still kill him in one of the 42 cities, as opposed to the 6 cities. Okay, but Rabbi Elazar is teaching a different law. He's teaching that in a city that has a majority of killers, no longer can become koletet. It's no longer a safe zone. What would that mean? Imagine there's 30 people that live in the city. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, goes all the way till 29. Finally, the 30th person comes in. The 30th accidental murderer moves in. Now you're at 30. One more, and the city no longer provides refuge because it's already not an Ir Miklat, it's a city.
6.
Sorry?
Among the 6 cities.
Even amongst the 6, it would sound like.
And the 42 as well?
All
42.
Okay? Yeah.
Goel Adam could kill that person.
Could kill, well, we'll see. Could kill that person, or maybe could kill any of them. Well, he can't kill any of them, but anyone would be, it's no longer safe. Why? Shneamar v'diber be'ozne zaknei ha'ir hahi et devarav. And he speaks to the elders of that city, et devarav, what the situation as an example. Ve'lo shehushvu divrehen ledvarav. He needs to be speaking to the elders of the city, like he's an outsider, and they're the elders of the city. The minute you now have shifted above the number of half, shehushvu dvarav lidverhem, that your words and their words are equal, okay? You don't have this top down, me speaking to the Zeknei Ha'ir. At that point already, there's no more salvation of a safe city. Interestingly enough, could someone pick up something on this? What do you notice when you think about this?
Sort of like the majority of the judges finding someone guilty and they're forcing everybody to be unanimous in finding them innocent, and therefore you need to have a majority of non-murderers to have a non-murderous city providing salvation.
So there is an element of that with regards to the majority in comparison to the people in the court. But I'm looking for something else. What did Rabbi Eliezer say? The city, once it has a majority of killers, you no longer have a safe zone. Why? Because in the pasuk, when the pasuk says, and he'll speak in the ears of the elders of that city, his divarav, it sounds like he's speaking to the elders. Whereas in a city where everybody is equal, because there's half of them that are murderers and half that are not, majority that are murderers, it's not that he's speaking to the elders of the city. We killers already run the city. Okay? I want you to ask me a question on this from what we just learned. Just self-referential question. So I think the questions that a person has to ask is, why did Rabbi Elazar say that that's true about a city that has majority killers? All you would need to lose that top-down, me speaking to the Zekenim, is for it to be equal, not for me to be majority. So why does Rabbi Elazar say that it only stops having its safe sanctuary city status when there's a majority of the killers? It should already be without the majority of the killers.
How about Chazakah?
Sorry?
It's already been a safe city. You have to do something to change its character.
Interesting. I like the point. You hear what he's?
Yeah.
You hear what he's answering? Maybe it only shifts when you're already above and beyond. So you're changing it. So what would be the case? By the way, if that's your answer, did you get his answer?
Yeah.
Yeah? So if that's your answer, then in other words, that the city belonged to the city elders. Now you equal status. But we don't lose our original status because we're equal. According to what you're saying then, let's say we went above the number. So everyone would agree it's no longer safe city. Then one of the killers dies. So there we wouldn't have to uproot the status. It would still be at half. And Rabbi Elazar never says that. Do you hear what I'm asking on your answer? Okay? All right, let's continue. However, at the very least that we have from Rabbi Elazar.
Presumption with a little thumb on the scale to the Zekenim, even if a murderer dies?
Sorry?
You don't give your presumption to the Zekenim with a little thumb on the scale because a murderer died?
All I would say is that once we've taken over the city and no longer are you the Zekenim, so then we don't have that status quo to rely on. So therefore, so long as hushvu, like that's the language. What made me realize this is, look at the language he uses. Lo shehushvu divrehen lidvarav. That him and they are the same because the majority of people are like that. But one would imagine you'd already have that when that's the case. All right, let's continue. Rabbi Elazar, sorry?
What's the answer to 50-50? No answer?
I would think that would be included, Rabbi Elazar, and therefore why doesn't he say so? Okay? So we're going to leave that as a question. Rabbi Elazar says, the same way we learned out that he needs to speak to the elders about his matter. But, when they're all killers, there's no elders, there's no my matter, your matter, we're all in the same boat together. Rabbi Elazar, if you have a city that doesn't have zekenim, there's no elders at all, what does that mean, that there's no elders? It means that everybody's just regular people, there's no rabbis, there's no beit din. And also, it does not provide safe sanctuary. Why? Because there needs to be this conversation, the Pasuk says, a conversation between you and the rabbis. You need the elders of the city, and you do not have. Literally, what you'd see in a situation like this is a guy gets to the city, he thinks he's safe, turns out there are no rabbis, for whatever reason. It's not safe anymore. So the city needs to have certain things in place, where if you don't have those things in place, you need to run to the next city. Okay?
Because you're trying to, I don't know if the right word is educate or
Put them on the right path.
improve the musar or whatever of the murderer for when he does get released, for when the Kohen Gadol dies?
What you're saying is very interesting. What I would caution, because there are times when the Torah tells you something, this is how it is. And now we're throwing in a logic and saying, you know why you need rabbis there? Because the purpose of the Ir Miklat is to rehabilitate the murderer. So therefore, that's why you need Beit Din. But I don't know. It's a pasuk. The pasuk says it. So what if you had a scenario where you had the Beit Din, but you didn't have the opportunity to learn? So in the pasuk, you'd be good. But according to your logic, you wouldn't be good. So that's called That's what's called Rabbi Shimon Darish Ta'ameh Dekra. Rabbi Shimon used to expound on the reasons for the pasuk. And the other Chachamim felt that it was a dangerous thing. Because then what happens if you feel like, oh, I don't feel that the reason is being met, but the pasuk still says, you know? So you're almost giving your own interpretation, and that's why the Gemara says Rabbi Shimon was Darish, but the other ones were not. Let's continue. The Gemara says, Itmar, let's learn. Ir she'en bazekenim, a city that does not have any chachamim, no bedin. Rabbi Ami and Rabbi Asi. We have a machloket between these two Amoraim, Rabbi Ami and Rabbi Asi. Chad omer koletet, we don't know who says what, okay? Every time you see Chad omer, one says, it means to say, we know that these two rabbis were arguing, and we know that one of the opinion was this, but we don't know which one said which. Chad omer koletet, one says, koletet, it absorbs, v'chad omer, and one says, eno koletet. Lemad amar eno koletet, the opinion that says that it doesn't absorb, ba'inan ziknei ha'ir v'leka. That opinion holds, like Rabbi Elazar. So if you don't have rabbis, this opinion says, like Rabbi Elazar, the city does not help. Lemad amar koletet, but the other opinion that says that still the person is safe in such a city, mitzvah be'alma. No. The concept is that there's a mitzvah that there should be elders. It's a mitzvah, but not a condition. So we want, maybe as an example, Nathan's reason, we want the guy to have positive role models. So therefore we have a mitzvah, make sure there's elders there. It doesn't mean that if there's no elders, it doesn't absorb. It's not safe. Let me give you another example. What did we learn earlier? We learned earlier that one of the responsibilities of the community is to make sure that there are safe, clear, designated roads leading from all the cities to an Ir Miklat. And signs. Why? Because we got to make sure it's our responsibility to do so. Not only that, the city itself needs to be near the water, or we need to provide water. Not only that, there needs to be a place where they can buy food. They have an Uri's. So we said all these things that we need to put. What happens if there's a city that doesn't have food? A city that doesn't have water?
No, it doesn't work, we said.
Sorry?
We said it doesn't work as the Yom Miklat.
It doesn't work for us to designate as a city. But let's say it's already designated as a city, that's a Ir Miklat. It's our responsibility to replenish the water, the food. But the fact that there's no food and no water doesn't mean that if the guy ran there, he's not safe. So the second opinion says, it's true that the Pasuk says that there should be zekenim, but that's like the Pasuk telling you that there should be water. So we have an obligation to provide that. We want you to do that, but we are not going to invalidate its status as a sanctuary city if there's no zekenim, if there's no elders.
What do they consider elders? A bedin?
Oh, excellent question. So the Mefarshim already talk, see, on his first Gemara class, knocking him out the park. Right, the Gemara, big question. Does it mean a minor bet din? A minor bet din, the bar is very low.
Right.
Very low, yeah. Like, you could put three people together. Hatara could be an example. Right? You have three people get together, bet din. The other opinion is, no, it needs to be like a Sanhedrin. Right? Sanhedrin, it's not just a Sanhedrin of a number. It's Sanhedrin in quality of judge status. What does the person need to know? What does he need to be capable of ruling on? Exactly. What kind of certification?
Talking about the signs, Rabbi Kalatsky mentioned about 30 years ago that the reason you have signs is you don't want someone to come knocking on the door and say, hey, I have to go find this Ir Miklat. And the son says to the father after the guy leaves, and why was this guy knocking on the door and why does he have to go there? And, because he did an accidental murder. You don't want this guy knocking on your door because it might suggest to the child of educatable age that bad things have happened. So that's the reason to have signs outside the city directing people where to go.
Yes, the Chachamim actually point out the difference. That how could it be that we have signs on the street telling you which way to go for Ir Miklat, but we don't have signs on the street telling you which way to go to the temple?
We did though.
The Beit HaMikdash.
Didn't we have the Makkot we learned?
What?
They stood with the signs of which way to go.
Yeah, but they're not fixed.
Oh.
And they're not remember the Miklat is every fork in the road had to have a sign that said Miklat. So that the guy would be able to run. So one of the questions they ask is, if you're going to put signs for this, for the bad thing, why don't you put signs for the good thing? And they exactly point out that the more people say, where you going? I'm going to Beit HaMikdash. The more people are going to want to go Beit HaMikdash. When someone accidentally murders, we don't want to bring that up as a possibility in the mind of people, that people should take it less seriously. And even just the fact that it's available in casual conversation, even because the guy's asking you directions, is already enough for us to not want that. So therefore we have miklat. By the way, that is a perfect example of darish tamid ikra, expounding the reason for a pasuk. Because what did the pasuk say? Tachin lecha haderech, prepare the way. The Gemara learned from prepare the way that you need to have a sign. So even if you didn't have this beautiful reason that you mentioned, you'd still have to do it because the pasuk says, make the roads, prepare the roads. And we learned from that you have to prepare signs. So the reason is an added benefit. Rab Chaim Soloveitchik used to explain that whenever you find the word ta'amid dekra, which means the reason for a pasuk, the reason for a mitzvah, the word ta'am means a reason, but also means a taste. And Rab Chaim used to explain, it's not the entirety of the thing. You have a steak. One of the elements that your senses appreciates when it's ingesting the steak is the taste. But it's got smell, it's got texture, it's got to look a certain way. If I gave you, like the astronauts have, a toothpaste tube filled with squeezable, mushable steak, the best steak in the world, in a smoothie machine, is horrible. So the texture might be everything. The smell might be as important as the taste. So one aspect of the mitzvah, that's how Rav Chaim used to say it. Brilliant way of saying it. The taste of the mitzvah, the ta'am, is like this. But obviously, we would have the halacha even without that. Similar, continues the Gemara. Okay, so what was the resolution to your question? The answer is, there's a disagreement amongst the halachic rulers. What does that require? Okay? Does it require high-level judges or minimal-level beit din? Okay? Now, the opinion that says minimal-level beit din, that's anybody. So what is the pasuk telling you that you need to have? The answer is, the pasuk is not telling you need people of this status. Rather, it's saying that he needs to make a statement to a beit din. So they need to convene, okay, and then they do it.
What did he say? Did we learn that? Hi, I'm here?
He needs to tell them what happened. Yeah.
Even though there was already ruled and another beit din.
This is a different thing. Yeah, this is a different thing. They're not ruling on anything.
It doesn't come with like a letter and say, hey guys.
No, they're not ruling on anything. He's just telling him what happened, what he's doing here, Yani. Okay? Last thing, by the way, this is interesting as well, is when he comes to this beit din, this ad hoc beit din. I remember a while ago we had a scenario with this situation where there was a child and the child required at the Brit Milah, the child required gerut. He needed to be converted. Okay, it wasn't from this community. A child needed to be converted at the Brit Milah for whatever reason, and they convened a beit din at the Brit Milah.
Just for that.
Why? Because a beit din needs to witness that this child had a conversion at his Brit Milah.
So he can get married.
So not so he can get married, so that he could be a Jew.
Don't they ask him?
Right? Sorry?
Don't they ask him again at bar mitzvah?
Yeah, but that's separate to this. Beit din needs to witness that he has. So who becomes the beit din? You don't need a bunch of rabbis sitting there with a table.
So it's an ad.
You have the mohel.
Two Jews are a beit din? Is that what we
Three. Yeah. Okay. Says the Gemara. This question of zikanim is a universal question. It says the Gemara, v'ir she'en b'zikanim, and any city that does not have zikanim, Rabbi Ami and Rabbi Yasi. Another machloket between the same two protagonists. Chara ma'anaseh ba ben soror morer. One says that if you have a city from that place, you could have the laws of ben soror morer. What's the laws of ben soror morer? You have a child who has to fulfill like so many different conditions in order for it to be relevant that it's actually impossible.
The voices have to be the same.
That's the one that makes it impossible, according to Rabbi Yeshaya Pik, right? But there's a million conditions which literally are impossible to fulfill, okay? But if you fulfilled all those conditions, this child, the halakha is, they would take him and they would put him to death. Why? Because what we're saying is, before he goes on to take this spoiled nature and turn into a murderer and killer, so we'll end his, so to speak, we'll end his potential criminal career before he starts. Okay, but like I said, Gemara says one opinion says never happened in the history of the Jewish people. One opinion says it happened one time in the history of the Jewish people. However, in that story, in that sequence of events, what does it say? The pasuk says, one opinion says a city that does not have a bet din does not have ben sorer. The opinion that says you can't make a ben sorer or morer in such a city, because the pasuk says the father and the mother take the child and they go to ziknei iro, to the elders of the city. If there are no elders in that city, there's another role, another element that you needed to fulfill that you were unable to fulfill. So therefore, the child doesn't have the law applied to him. According to the opinion that says that he could still be a ben sorer or moreh, even if there isn't a bet din in that city, exactly like you just said, they'll just go to another bet din. Mitzvah be'alma. It's just a mitzvah. It's not a condition. It's a preferred way. The mitzvah would be that there should be a bet din in the city, and that the father or mother, b'tafsu, should grab him and go and say, B'nenu zeh, this son is a ben sorer or moreh. What Nathan is alluding to is a chidush from Rabbi Yeshaya Pik. It says that the father and mother would say, they would say in their voice. And the Gemara says that they need to be in one voice. Father and mother need to have one voice. Says Rabbi Yeshaya Pik, this makes ben sorer or moreh impossible. Why? Because it's asking for the voices to be the same pitch. Where does vocal pitch come from? It comes from levels of testosterone versus estrogen. A deeper voice comes from testosterone. A lot thinner, more feminine voice comes from estrogen, from a lack of testosterone. If the wife sounds like the husband, it means she's too masculine to have been able to have a child. If the voice is so feminine, then he's too feminine to have had a child on a hormonal level. So therefore, the pasuk gave you something that would never ever be possible. So why would it give you a mitzvah that was never possible?
To learn.
Gemara says, "Dirosh kabel sechar," to learn and to receive the reward of the learning of this new parasha. One opinion says this is just more Torah to learn. The question is, really, was that the problem? Like, people were finishing all the Torah. They're like, what should we learn now? Hashem's making up mitzvot that will never happen. The Chachamim explain, it doesn't mean Derosh Kabel Sechar, learn this parasha and learn and receive its reward, but rather, there are lessons to be learned from this parasha, even if it never takes place. It's still a cautionary tale in how to raise children, etc., etc. In father and mother having one voice, being on the same page in the way that they educate their children. That's what it means. In one voice, they say it.
Both voices are equal?
Sorry?
Both voices are equal. Father and mother?
Father and mother, both voices equal.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
Is it literal when you say voice, or it's the same opinion, the same?
Mommy says this.
So the lessons might be metaphorical,
Right.
but the obligation is specific.
And is it that you need to
Literal.
because you need witnesses and it's
Nope.
a minimum of
Nope. You know why that can't be?
Why?
They're related.
Oh, right.
Not only to them, each other, but also to the child.
Right.
So they would all be pasul as witnesses. The Gemara continues, okay? Another example. The Ir she'en bazekenim, a city that does not have elders in it. Rabbi Amir Abasi, again the same machloket. Chad amar mevia egla arufa. One says you could bring egla arufa. Chad amar ena mevia egla arufa. One says you can't bring an egla arufa. What does an egla arufa mean? It means a calf that its head is aruf, is cut off. What does that mean? What's the case? The case of that is where you find a dead body and we don't know who killed the body. We don't know who killed it.
Measure.
So what do? We measure, where is this body closer to? My city or your city?
Bet deans both have to meet in the middle, right?
The city that the body is closer to, it's their responsibility. Okay? And what do? They come and they say over this body, they put their hands on the egla rufa, and they say, our hands are clean in this act of murder. All right? Our hands did not spill this blood. and they say a whole prayer to God, for forgiveness, and they also pray to God that the murderer of this crime, the person who perpetrated this crime, should be found and punished. And then what do? And the end of this korban is that they cut off the head of the eglah, and that happens in that place. But also by eglah arufa, in a scenario where we don't know who the killer is, and we do this procedure. One opinion says a city that doesn't have a beit din, doesn't have zikenim, you don't bring it. The other opinion says you do. Why? Ba'inan, again, the pasuk over there says, the elders of that city, Ba'inan zikne ha'irahu, that's what that opinion says. The other opinion that says that you don't need it, what does he hold? Like we saw so many times. Vileka, lemanda amar mivi'ah eglarufa, the one that says you do bring, what does he hold? Mitzvah ba'alma. There's a mitzvah, a better way of doing this is that the calf is brought by the city elders. But what happens if you don't have city elders? It doesn't preclude you from having the parasha of Eglah Rufa. It's just not done in the ideal way, okay? So the same machloket with three different eventualities that we found. What are the three eventualities? The first one is our case of a sanctuary city. The second case is a situation of Ben Sorer Moreh. The third case is Eglah Rufa. Fascinating. I was thinking to myself, if I was a Ben Sorer Moreh who was about to get caught, I would beeline directly to the rabbi's house, knock him off. Now there's no beit din. They can't get me. So if this kid is true garbage pail kids, he knows exactly what to do to make sure that he doesn't get tried. Okay, let's continue. Gemara continues. Amar Rav Chama bar Chanina. Rav Chama, the son of Chanina, said, "Mipnei ma ne'emra parashat rotzchim." Why was the parasha of rotzchim? Why was this the verse specifically brought down, right, in the sefer of Bilshon Azah, in a very strong expression, okay? Lashon Azah. Dichtiv, because it says in the pasuk, "Vayidaber Hashem el Yehoshua lemor," and God spoke to Yehoshua saying, "Daber el bnei Yisrael lemor," speak to Jewish people saying, "Tenu lachem et arei miklat," give for yourselves these cities, safe cities, asher dibarti alechem. 3 times it uses the word dibur. Vayidaber, daber, dibarti. There are 3 or 4 different words that we use with regards to speech in Hebrew. Vayomer, lemor, emor. That's always soft. Okay? Dibur is harsh. Lahagid or vayaged, also harsh. Okay, those expressions are even harsher than dibur. Why does it say it's harsh? Whenever it says vayaged, and he mentioned it, he said, Divarim kashim kigidim. If you ever chewing on a piece of steak and you get to a proper vein, right, you get to that part, you can't bite through it. So the word vayaged, the root of it comes from the word vein, like vayaged, okay? Gidim. So that's very hard, literally very hard to swallow, okay? So the Gemara asks, why when God commanded this, why was it said in such a harsh language, employing the word dibur 3 different times? Lememra dechol dibur lashon kasha. The Gemara says, are you trying to tell me that every time it says the word dibur, that means that it's an expression of difficulty, lashon kasha? The Gemara says, yes, kedichtiv, like it says, diber ha'ish adonai haaretz itanu kashot. When the brothers come back after speaking to Joseph, what do they say to their father? The man spoke to us. He spoke to us kashot, hard. And what language does it use? Diber. So you see, diber is a language of harsh expression. So now that we've established that dibur means harsh speech, so now we want to know, why is this mitzvah given by God to the Jewish people in the time of Yehoshua? Why is it given in a harsh expression? Can I trouble you for some water? Sure. Sorry, Mechila. Yeah? The Gemara answers, The Gemara answers like Jews do. We answer a question with a question. 1 second, you're asking me this question. V'hatanya, doesn't it say in the Braita, Nidberu, en nidberu ela lishon nachat. Okay? Let's take a look at the word nidberu. So, if you want to see, anytime you see a verse in the Gemara, okay, Nathan? See in this inside column on the Hebrew, a little bit more to the left there, on the Hebrew side, in the little column at the bottom, all the way to the right, right there. You see Torah or Hashalem?
Yeah.
So right over there, it will bring, in any time the Gemara brings a pasuk, or even one word of the pasuk, it will bring the whole pasuk. So it's always very helpful to look over there. So let's take a look at the whole pasuk. It's the second wide line in those tiny letters. Az nidberu yireh Adonai, then did speak the ones who feared God, ish el re'eu, man to his friend, vayakshev amonai, and God listened, vayishma, and he heard, vayikatev sefer zikaron lefanav, and it was written in God's memory books in front of him, liyireh Hashem, to those that fear God, ulechoshvei shemo, and those who show deference to his name. So over here when it says as nidberu, nidberu means they spoke, but we're referring to the most righteous people, okay? Thank you very, very much. Baruch atah Adonai melech haolam she'akol yibaro. We're referring to the most righteous people. What kind of language would you attribute to such righteous people who are speaking to God? Are they speaking harshly to God? No. So nidberu and nidberu ela lashon nachat. It means that they're speaking nicely, calmly. V'chenu omer. Not only that, we also find it says yadber amim tachtenu. Yadber over there does not mean speech necessarily, but it means that God is going to cause the nations of the world to be underneath us. Let's see the full pasuk as well. Third wide line in the little reshi in the Pesukim. Yadber amim tachtenu v'leumim tachat raglenu. God should cause these nations to come under us. Uleumim, and princes or nations again underneath our legs. So why would you see that those words yadber should be underneath us? Okay. So I always thought to myself that where do we find the word speaking over here in the Gemara? It says that they're going to be led underneath us. Why is that? What does that have to do with speech? The answer is, when you serve a master, even if you're from another country, what language do you speak to your master in? Does he speak your language or do you speak his? You speak his language. So yadber amim tachtenu, time of Mashiach, when the nations are going to serve Am Yisrael because they want a portion of our mitzvot, what language will they speak? Lashon Hebrew, our language. So yadber amim tachtenu, the process of leading them underneath us, is caused by or shown by the fact that they're speaking under our leadership. So again, you see dibur expressed in something that's very advantageous for us. I don't truly, if I'm honest with you, I don't truly understand the second Gemara's point, the second proof over here. The first proof I understand, they spoke nicely, as nidberu, the righteous people spoke to God, they spoke nicely, I get it. The second one is, it says that these people, yadber amim tachtenu, maybe it means that that's happening, that process is happening, where they're being led underneath our service. Maybe that process is a very harsh process for them. So I'm not sure on the second question of the Gemara, why that's a question on dibur being kasher.
Why is the first one daber and not amarta if it's supposed to be soft?
So no, that's the whole Gemara's question. You see the expression of dibur and it's soft. So the Gemara is answering the question. Why are we saying that the parasha in a harsh way? The Gemara is now attacking the assumption, but with a question. You see over here elsewhere that the word nidberu is clearly soft and it uses the language of dibur. So obviously dibur does not mean harsh. So we are answering the question by challenging the assumption. But the second proof, I don't know why that proves it. Yes?
Because yad is lead.
Okay, so what?
It's just the same root of the word. You said that the nations of the world, they're going to come to us, or we're going to rule over them.
I'm asking, where do you see in Yadber Amim Tachtenu that is something that happens softly?
Maybe it's not soft. Maybe it's just using the definition of it. Yad Bear being lead versus Yad Bear being...
Even if you're trying to tell me that Dibur is not harsh, Dibur is soft. So you'd have to be proving from here that Dibur is soft. Where do you see that the Dibur is soft? I see that it could be soft, but I don't know from here that it must be. Okay? To ask a question, you have to be able to prove it, not suggest it. Okay? Says the Gemara, Daber lechud, Yadber lechud. Haha. The Gemara says, these are two different words. I don't know what you're bringing proof from. Dibur is harsh. Yadber is soft. So nidberu and yadber, okay, are different words than dibur. Okay, so therefore you can't prove it's cross-referencing, but not in the good way. Yes.
Harsh is better than soft. You get the message there.
So we're left back with our question. Nathan's attempting to answer it. So let's go back. We are now back to our question. Dibur actually means harsh. Why would God, in commanding them to separate the cities for the accidental murders, why is he speaking to them harsh? We don't have an answer yet. And the Gemara's answer was, Mipneh, let's go back now, right? Mipneh, right, straight up to the top for the answer of the Gemara. Shehen shel Torah. Why did God do that? Because they are words of the Torah. When the Torah is obligating a person to do something, oftentimes we'll do it in a way where a person must be done, must do something. This is not Hashem saying, listen, I have a suggestion for you guys. It's not the 10 suggestions, it's the 10 commandments. And the commandments are dibur. So therefore the Gemara is saying, you know why it was commanded in a harsh way? Because when you're forced to do something, whether you like it or not, that is its harshness. That you have no other option but to do so. I have another element that I would like to bring to bear, but let's take a question first.
If it's official, if something is official, it doesn't have to be harsh, but it's official, it's serious.
It's firm.
Firm.
Yes.
It being harsh.
Without it being harsh. So that's really what the Gemara is answering. It's not a harsh thing. It's not that God was speaking down to them or yelling at them. Like by, in the example of Yosef, his speech to them was harsh. Specifically so, not firm. He was trying to beat them up. You know what I mean? Okay. The added element I wanted to add is that what was harsh or firm about this expression to Joshua, to Yoshua, in setting aside these cities? Think of the context. What's Yoshua doing at that point?
leading the people.
Conquering the land of Israel. To what end? To distribute Israel evenly amongst all the Jewish tribes, all the 12 tribes. The idea that parts of those tribes were rent stabilized, right, had to be designated for Ir Miklats is harsh. We just fought for all these cities, and now you're telling me these portions, these pieces of land, we can't divide. The harshness is in the setting aside of it.
Another challenge.
Right? And especially understanding the context of Yehoshua vis-a-vis this thing. Let's continue.
What time is it?
Oh, Mincha. Baruch Adonai Le'olam. Amen ve'amen.